Voting is one of the pillars of democracy. The idea of voting is to include the voices of everyone in the country. People want to have their ideas and opinions represented by who they elect into office. Being a part of a country is deciding who is elected to govern the people. When politicians that represent the values and beliefs of citizens are elected, people will feel more pride and confidence in their country, creating a place where they are happy to live. However, voting has historically not included all American citizens. Black men weren't able to vote until 1869, and women weren't able to vote until 1920. Another milestone in protecting voting rights was the Voting Rights Act of 1965, which outlawed discriminatory voting practices such as required literacy tests. And while these laws did help ensure that more people could vote and have their voices represented in government, there is still voter suppression to this day. According to the Brennan Center for Justice, some examples of modern voter suppression include imposing strict voter ID laws, cutting voting times, restricting registration, and purging voter rolls. All of these limit the amount of people that can vote and make it a hassle so that people are discouraged from voting. Additionally, according to National Geographic, some politicians may use strategies such as reducing polling locations in predominantly African American or Latino neighborhoods, or only having polling stations open when many disenfranchised populations are at work and are unable to take the time off in order to go vote. But the situation is far from hopeless. Although voter turnout in the United States is low, as we move forward, more and more Americans are voting. According to NPR, about 27% of voters between the ages of 18 and 29 cast a ballot in the 2022 midterm elections. Researchers say that the 2022 midterms had the second highest voter turnout among voters under 30 in at least the past 3 decades, behind the 2018 midterms. But it is still a promising sign. Although there is still more work to do, and voter turnout can be higher. Individual citizens should register to vote early and make sure that their ballot was received if they voted by mail. People can also sign up to work at voting polls so they run smoothly and have plenty of help. Additionally, citizens can volunteer with a politician's campaign in order to help advertise their policies to voters in the area and encourage people to vote. In our own area, Josh Harder won re-election to the House of Representatives for California's 9th Congressional District against opponent Tom Patty, who is the San Joaquin County Supervisor. Campaigns are able to be successful due to the volunteers and advertisers that make sure that messages reach voters in the area. Furthermore, communities should make voting accessible to their population. They can improve public transportation to take people to the polls if they live far away. Communities should also be advertising voting and making sure that their members know that they are also able to vote by mail if they are unable to vote in person. But in a larger sense, organizations have the power to create real change. They can push for less restrictions on voting and promote legislation that helps voters. According to the Carnegie Corporation, philanthropy has a long record of standing up for the voting rights of vulnerable populations. Foundations supported bipartisan efforts that resulted in the enactment of the National Voter Registration Act in 1993 and the Help America Vote Act in 2002. Organizations have the power to create change. So with these efforts, AAUW also has extensive work that helps to protect and expand voting rights. They work in coalition with other gender equity rights groups and civil rights organizations. They mobilize AAUW advocates through targeted calls to action on important legislation. They engage directly with elected officials through calls, letters, comments, and testimony in hearings. They provide key voter resources on equity issues to consider during elections. All of these efforts work to protect people who cannot work alone to create change. Voting is how we protect our democracy and make sure that people are governed by who they choose to best represent their ideals. Everyone has a place in voting, and everyone can make sure that marginalized voices are heard. As younger generations become legally eligible to vote, we must make sure that more people are able to vote in an easy and accessible manner. The more people that vote, the more representative our government is, which is what we want for democracy. We all have the responsibility to educate and advocate to make the United States an inclusive country. Thank you.